you are the author of your own life. And we mean that exactly, that what it takes to write the book you most want to write is what it takes to lead the life you most want to lead. So for me, when we gather here this weekend to celebrate books and writing and reading, I really see us gathering to celebrate life itself. And one way we often do this when we talk about books is to talk about great books. Hemingway said he knew he had read a great book if he felt changed after he finished it. And I think probably everybody in this room's had that experience. It's probably in part why you're here. But if you find yourself talking about these great books this weekend, whether it's your own list of great books or the canon or whatever it is, if you find yourself talking about these books, I encourage you not to talk about them as if they are a triumph of craft. I've got nothing against craft. I love craft. I've got a magazine full of articles on craft. But a book that stays with you for most of your life is not a work of mere craft. A work that stays with you for that long is always, for me, the product of three things. Someone who loves to write, writing what they most want to write in the way they most want to write it. And so, in this way, a great book, or really any book, is a work of love. Not of craft, not of intelligence, and not even of discipline, but of love. And that love is always expressed itself in one question, asked and answered over and over again. What do I most want to write? Because a sentence can be grammatically correct, it can be intellectually correct, but if it's not what the author most wants to say at that moment and that subject for that story, it is incorrect. What you most want to say is the only truth to which you are beholden. And so that's what a writer does. They sit and wait, just like Will said. They wait until they hear what it is they most want to say. And they ask and answer that question and ask and answer that question. Now, of course, a writer could, though none of the writers here have ever done this, I know, but a writer could conceivably ask, what could I write that could sell 500,000 books? Or what could I write that will attract the attention of a great agent if I haven't been published yet? Or what could I write that will win me a lot of awards? And as really, as tempting as those questions are, and as practical even as they are unanswerable. They are unanswerable because the answers to those questions lie in the hearts of other people, in the hearts of your prospective readers, or in agents, or in editors, or judges, or critics. And I could no more tell anyone here what it is they most want to read than anyone here could tell me what it is I most want to write. We don't get to do that. So we all have to find our own way, whether we like it or not. You know, the sovereignty of the soul or of the heart is absolute, because no one in the world, even if we wanted to, and sometimes I do want them to, can tell me what it is I most want. We have to go find that ourselves. We have to go find that answer ourselves. And sometimes we find that answer in the books we read and in the books we write. So take Deb Coletti. Deb Coletti is a great local young adult author. She's in the current issue of Author. And she was 32 years old. She had a husband she adored. She had 2 kids. She loved them. But the truth was, Deb was kind of an unhappy camper because she had wanted to write all her life. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to write stories. But she had gone to college for journalism, because who writes fiction? She didn't know anybody who wrote fiction. That's something other people did, so she didn't do it. And all these years went by, and she wasn't doing it, and she wasn't happy. So at 32, she said to herself, well, it's time to fish or cut bait here. I'm going to give it a shot. And what she did is she took a quote by Nietzsche, and she put it on the wall she faced while she wrote. And what the quote read was, become who you are. It didn't say you're a great writer. It didn't say you're going to sell a book. It didn't say, you're fantastic, all of which would have been fine, but what it said was, become who you are, which I think is great. And what she did, what is fantastic about what she did is when she answered that question, what do I most want? I want to write stories. When she answered that question, she located the source to the answer to the question, what do I now most want to write? She now knew where to go to find that answer. And as she answered it, book by book, page by page, word by word, she was guiding herself step by step towards who she was. She was finding the only route available, which is, what do I most want? It's the only route. And you think it's so simple, you know. It is so simple, but I forget it. Everybody forgets it, I think. And everybody in the world would be quite happy all the time if all they did was ask and answer that question, ask and answer that question, and everybody would except for one small detail. And that detail is this. If you answer that question authentically, just as Deb Coletti did, if you answer it authentically, there's a very good chance you will be pointed in a direction that no one you know has ever traveled before. If you answer it authentically, you may be steered away from old friends and family. And if as a writer, if you answer it authentically, you may look down at the page and you might see some words there that you've never seen before. Some combination of words you've never seen before, which is exhilarating, but it's also kind of frightening. What if nobody likes them? What if it won't get published? What if the reviews will be bad? You don't get to know. You don't get to know because if you answer it authentically, you are inevitably guided toward the unknown. And that's what I was thinking about myself when I decided that I wanted to reach out to the writing community here in Puget Sound. I've been writing for years, but I've been doing it in isolation, and I thought, well, I got to reach out. So what I did was I went down. The first small step I took was to go down to the Richard Hugo House, where David Wagner, who's a poet and novelist, teaches there. And I showed him something I'd written, and he read it. He said, great. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to write stories. I want to write novels. And this is what he said. He said, well, Bill, I wish you luck. It's a lonely road. He actually said that. He said, it's a lonely road. And you know what? It is. Sometimes I fool myself, and I think it is a lonely road, but it would be a lot lonelier if I was the only one on it. There is a reason that the hero's journey is this enduring story archetype. There is a reason, over and over again, we tell the story of someone traveling toward a dark cave, towards the unknown, and returning with some information. You know, we don't tell these stories to each other to tell us the way, because no one can tell you the way, because no one knows what you want most. But I believe that everyone in the world wants to answer that question authentically. I think that is all they are yearning for, is to answer that question authentically. But I believe that they become afraid, or they even think for a moment that maybe that question and that answer is kind of meaningless in a way, or maybe trivial, or even selfish. What do I most want? Although I assure you, if you answer it authentically, you are always guided towards other people. But I also believe that a really good book can remind you that it's meaningful. It can remind you that it's worth it. And sometimes, at least for me, that is all that is required for you to ask and answer the question one more time, what do I most want? Thanks very much.